back on the Bridgeport. Got the 288 case here. And I need to mill this. So what I've got here is there's kind of a step between the two case halves. So I'm going to use the PTO side case half as my reference. And I'd say we're pretty dialed in here. And I need to take about 20 thousandths off this case, so not too much. I'm just going to bring this all the way over here. You guys can see where we're at. Yeah, it's pretty dialed. So, just to use the pointer here. Let me see what I find. Old file. So, from here on the case to there is one axis, and then from there to here is another axis. So I'm basically plus or minus half a thousandth from there to there. And there's a step between the cases. And again, I'm going to use the PTO side as reference here. And then the whole thing will be completely flat. It is much more crucial that it's flat this way than this way. Because if the cylinder head tilts in this dimension, that's bad. If it tilts front to back, no big deal, because the piston can do this without any trouble. But if it tilts in this dimension, that's real bad. Pistons don't like that. Cranks don't like that. So I've got it zeroed. And all I have, this is just a dial indicator, and happens to be on a magnetic base, which is attached to the Bridgeport itself here. And as long as I move, you can see how this is moving. And we're still on 0. Half a thousandth there. So what? That's as close as that's going to get. Now, we had a great discussion the other day about how to actually zero it to the crank, because it's probably more important to zero it to the crank than it is to zero it here. But that is not easy to do. That is actually exceptionally difficult, and there's a number of different ways that might actually be possible. And one, I think the best idea is actually put the crank between centers here on the Bridgeport. It's got to be locked here somehow. Instead of putting the whole crank case in the vise here, which is really just kind of a crude way of doing it. But it holds it. It certainly holds it well enough, and it gets this flat enough that it'll actually be a better surface than you can possibly ask for. So I do like the idea of between centers. I don't have a device that'll hold it like that right now. Maybe one day I'll make one, but for right now, I'd say this is as good as it gets. So. Going to take 20 thousandths off here, and I'll get back to you when I'm done machining. Hang on. Okay, so now I've got this surface. You can see how polished looking that is, and you just got a little bit more to go here. And we're not gouging, so it didn't end up, because if the whole thing moves, you're sunk. You don't want that. Let's just bring this off. You don't want to touch anything, but we can turn off the machine. And what you want to do is check kind of the corners and make sure you've got everything machined beyond. And it is there's no corner that's sticking up or whatever. And you do also have to be careful. The inner edge here is real sharp, so you might want to bevel that before you remove the putty here. But that looks pretty darn nice. There's no step here. So you machine from here, you go all the way around and make sure there's no step. If there's no step, it's nice and flat, and you got it made. So that's and I just freehand this. This doesn't, where the gasket is over here on this side is basically irrelevant. So you just got to make sure you machine it beyond that, where there's no step in the gasket or something like that. What else? That's pretty much it on this. And hope you guys like it. This is just the way I do it. It's not the way everybody does it. I know a lot of guys, they end up cutting the base on the head, and that's fine too. I like machining crankcases. It's pretty easy for me to do. And if you put another head on, it's already machined for you. The squish is going to be a whole lot closer. The downside is if you're starting with a machined head, then you don't want a machined crankcase also, because then you don't know where you're going to end up necessarily. You might want to start with a stock crankcase. So anyway, here comes a cat. So that's where we're at, and yeah, hope you guys liked the video. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe. Take care, guys.